Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and today we have a very special guest. We're delighted to have with us Mauro. He is the National Security Analyst for ClarionProject.org, which produces hit films like Obsession and The Third Jihad and others. Perhaps you've seen him on some of the major news networks, Fox News Channel and others. He's a contributor there as well. And we want to talk to him today about a lot of things, but in particular, Secretary Hagel's resignation and just how safe America really is. Hi, Ryan. Good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to see you. Well, first of all, what did you think of Hagel's resignation? Was he forced out?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And you can tell just by the leaks that were going on that he was just deemed to be very ineffective, particularly from a bureaucratic standpoint. They said that President Obama just wasn't impressed at meetings with him, and he really never made it into the inner circle of trust at the White House.
You know, that is, I keep hearing that statement. That is scary when the Secretary of Defense isn't in the inner circle. So where was he?
I know, that's a pretty senior position, so he should be right there. But at the same time, I'm not hearing a lot of pushback from Washington where anyone's saying, no, Hagel was right, he was great, this is horrible. So that tells you something, because Washington's a gossipy place. So if no one's defending him, then he didn't do a good job.
Well, that's got to be ultra frustrating. I mean, here you are, Secretary of Defense, and you're not part of the inner circle. So do you really know what's going on?
Well, they're all going off of the same information. Apparently what he would do is he'd be very quiet at meetings, and then if you want to express his opinion to President Obama, he'd pull him off to the side and then express it there. He just wasn't seen as proactive. Based on what we're hearing. But I hope that his replacement is an expert and not just a typical political appointee, someone who really understands counterinsurgency, the radical Islamic ideology, working with foreign forces. We don't just want to promote the next person in line at the Department of Defense.
Well, now he was elected, or at least got confirmed with one of the narrowest margins in history. So he really didn't go in with a lot of support. But on the other hand, some said he kind of grew into the job. He realized terrorism was much more of a threat than Obama does, but since there is no real strategy in place, he was frustrated.
I've heard that, but what you're not getting from the leaks is what strategy did he advocate. And so I could see why President Obama, if he's seeing those leaks in the newspaper, would get frustrated, because if he's not raising it aggressively at the meetings, then how's the president and the other staff supposed to know exactly what's going on? So who knows exactly what the truth is? We do know that Hagel criticized the policy in terms of Syria. We know that apparently he got into a little bit of trouble when he talked about ISIS being an imminent threat to American interests everywhere, which was rhetoric higher than what the president wanted to go with.
Very interesting. All right. Given the situation, any idea who may be floating in the way of a name to replace him?
There's some other names going up about like an undersecretary of defense. But for me, they're all the same. I just want an expert in counterinsurgency. I don't want to just pick someone who's an effective bureaucrat. Pick someone call up General Petraeus and ask him to recommend someone, and then just go with that. That's what I feel like would be the best way forward.
That would be wonderful. All right, tell us about CAIR, what's the Council on American Islamic Relations. Really, tell us about it. Are they a terrorist organization?
If you believe that the Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization, which Hamas is a member of, then yes, they are. What Americans need to know, and especially Christians, is that the Council on American Islamic Relations parades as this moderate group. They put their spokespeople up in the media. They hold events with churches sometimes. And what they are is basically a political advocacy group. They say that they just want to stop anti-Muslim bigotry, but there's a political agenda here, and it's to obviously bash Israel. It's to influence American foreign policy, and they are connected to the Muslim Brotherhood, and specifically to what's called the Palestine Committee, which was established by Hamas. So they were created by the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, and that's why the United Arab Emirates, a Muslim Arab country, designated them as a terrorist group.
Wow. All right, so what's their ultimate goal in the U.S.? To neutralize us?
For now, it's to neutralize our policy. The FBI wiretapped a secret meeting of Brotherhood and Hamas leaders, which two CAIR founders attended in 1993 in Philadelphia. And what they were heard discussing was how to mislead and deceive the public in order to support the Brotherhood Hamas agenda. And they explicitly said what they want to do is influence policy. So you won't see CAIR taking pictures of themselves as they pass a check to Hamas. There were other groups that were doing that. What CAIR's creation was for waging a battle in public opinion and in the media.
It appears that the president's policy as it relates to Israel and maybe even CAIR's influence is working. I don't see this president supporting Israel at any good level. And so I don't know if CAIR is having an impact there, but it appears that it is.
More importantly, I think CAIR is having an impact in terms of the media coverage, especially when they slander folks that criticize them. And by the way, they don't really call folks like myself Islamophobes. They call Muslims that criticize them as Islamophobes. It's really ridiculous, but that's what they do to delegitimize people. As for Israel, the president obviously has been very, very critical of Israel at certain points. But then also he has funded the Iron Dome system that intercepts the rockets. He did defend Israel's right to defend itself when it was fighting with Hamas. He opposed the ground offensive into Gaza. So I don't think it's very clearly black and white, but obviously in terms of support for Israel, it leaves much wanting.
So Ryan, where do you think this is going? It sounds to be a whole lot more than what we're believing it to be.
Well, basically the fundamental issue here is that the United Arab Emirates and other countries in the Middle East view the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist group because they're focusing on the ideology. They say we're not just concerned with those that pick up a gun and kill someone. We're interested in those that finance that, those that incite it. The overall ideological network is what creates terror. And so the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, ironically, and Egypt have banned the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist group, but the UAE went a step further. What they wanted to do was call out some of the major Brotherhood affiliates in Europe and in the United States to drive the point home that this isn't just about the Middle East, that the Brotherhood has affiliates influencing policy in the West, and they wanted to delegitimize them. So it's a very dramatic move. And by the way, CAIR has gotten donations from the UAE. They've met with their officials. So you can't say that the UAE has had this long-term hostility towards CAIR. It's just that they came to the realization that we have a problem on our hands, and CAIR is part of that problem.
Wow. All right. So how, in light of that, how secure do you think we are? Do you think we are secure in America right now? I think it's number one now in a lot of people's mind. I think you have the economy, and then the next one is national security. And now with the change at the Defense Department, are we in a pretty vulnerable state?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we are safer since 9/11 because of some of the changes that were made. And Americans are just more aware of the threat, and al-Qaeda has been hurt very much so. But the threat is still definitely there. And if you look at the trends, they're not looking too good for us. And that's because since 2010, you've had the number of al-Qaeda type terrorists at least double. According to a study, you've had the number of al-Qaeda type groups since 2001. At least double. The number of people killed by terrorism worldwide is skyrocketing. So is the number of individual attacks. So you look at all of the data, and it becomes clear that there's a very negative trend happening. But there's also a positive trend. So that really is comforting, which is that there is a backlash in the Muslim world against specific groups like Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, Hezbollah, and al-Qaeda. Unfortunately, I don't feel that we're harnessing that movement. But the overthrow of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt by millions of Muslims and Christians coming together, for example, was a tremendous opportunity for us that we failed to seize upon.
Yeah, that's one of the most alarming parts. Do you think, what could we do to support the Kurds more?
Well, they're asking for humanitarian aid and guns. And the Kurds are a rare group in the Middle East that we can trust. Yes, there are some radical elements among them. There is a terrorist group called the PKK among them. But by and large, when you see these death to Israel, death to America rallies across the region, you don't see the Kurds involved in that much. You don't see that crossing over into the Kurdish areas. In fact, they're not only pro-American, they are proudly pro-American. And what Kurdish leaders will actually say publicly is that we practice a moderate version of Islam. We want to welcome Christians to live with us. We don't want anything to do with a caliphate. And privately, Kurds won't say this publicly, they just want peace. They're not interested in waging a jihad against Israel. They want peace. They want to have a better life for everyone in the region. And it's very sad to see when we have such an ally deliver to us and so enthusiastic about our cooperation, them feeling incredibly let down.
Wow. Well, Ryan, thanks for the work that you do. Any more films coming out? What are you working on?
The latest film that came out, which we were a part of with a coalition, is called Honor Diaries, which is all about the plight of women in Muslim-majority societies.
Wow.
I also recommend that people go to clarionproject.org, sign up for our weekly newsletter so that we can bring you deeper into this content than what you get in the 3-minute news segments, because you'll be shocked to see what we write about.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Blessings on you. Again, that's clarionproject.org if you need to get more information on that, clarionproject.org. Thanks, my friend. Look forward to having you back again.
Thank you so much.
All right. God bless. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Welcome back. Hey, delighted to have with us back in the studio today Larry Blight. He's the lead chaplain at the Asante Rogue Regional Medical Center. You guys change your name about every 3 days, don't you?
Evidently more descriptive this way.
Okay, here it is. I think everybody just calls it, well, anyway, RVMC, but it's not that. It's Asante Rogue Regional Medical Center.
Yes.
Hi, Larry. How are you? Good
I'm
to see
doing
you.
good.
You're looking great.
Thanks.
Good to see you. All right, you're the lead chaplain. You got a big job over there.
I do. It's a great job because they allow us to be with patients every day. I have a group of volunteers and about 25 now, 26 volunteers. We're trying to recruit some more, and we go every day to be with patients, hear their stories.
Wow.
We have no agenda going in. We just want to listen, and it's just amazing some of the stuff the harrowing stuff people are going through. A lot of times their stress comes not from the medical, but from all the stuff that's in their life that's impacting the medical, or that could have caused the medical.
And actually provides an opportunity for you to do ministry.
Yes. Yeah, because I was just doing some reading here and there. The Journal of Christian Obstetrics and Gynecology said that 93% of the cancer patients that they interviewed used their spiritual beliefs to help them get through the cancer.
Wow.
And so there's a significant relevance to what I believe in my spirit, how that affects my healing process. And sometimes that gets clouded up with all sorts of other stuff. And our volunteers are trained to go back in and try to process that out and hear their stories and let them talk about that.
All right, so you're going to have a caregiving training session coming up 2 days, January 29th and 30th, from 8 to 4. What's this designed to do?
It's designed to, the first day will be kind of an introductory thing. It's what our philosophy is, how we deal with multiple faiths, and then how do we do a spiritual assessment? How do we assess people where they are spiritually? Because we believe that it's been taught and proposed that people are connected in 3 ways: to themselves, to others, and to their God, whoever that is. Mm-hmm. If there's a disconnect, then they get into spiritual distress, and a lot of times health issues create the disconnect. Mm-hmm. Why am I here? Why is God doing this to me? Why me? Mm-hmm. And so there's a disconnect there, or there's a disconnect between them and the families. They will they don't want to go to the doctor. They're forced to go to the doctor now because the problems have gotten so bad. But they don't want to be there. They don't want to deal with those issues, or even the denial of the self. You know, it's just a little bit no big deal, no pain. You know, and they're facing major surgeries, and then sometimes even in the hospital they get big diagnosis that they went in for a gallbladder surgery and realized they've got liver cancer.
Yeah,
and that just throws their whole world into a uproar.
Now, are you also using this not only to train but to recruit?
Yeah, that's the hope of this, is we want to recruit them. The first day is kind of introductory. If you like what you see, if you think you can be effective and you want to be a part of the ministry, then you go to the second day, and that's more intense, and we do some actually in-room
visits, huh?
Yeah, visits and that kind of stuff to try to get people to say, this is either good for me or I can't do this.
What are you looking for in basic qualifications for volunteer chaplains?
We want people who are pretty secure where they are spiritually. And, you know, we're not looking for evangelists, because we don't do that.
Yeah.
But we are looking for people who can listen and who can hear and empathize, who have a desire to help people. Because really, when you're, you know, if you've never been in the hospital, you know, it's a difficult situation because everything's out of your control, and we want to give them back some control. So tell me your story. What's going on in your life?
I also know that it's an incredible time in the life of the patient. They seem to be either very open or very closed, but the ones that are open, I'll go in to visit somebody in the hospital, and then I'll bump into 4 or 5 other people, and then I'm there for a couple of hours, you know. And the only thing they want to do is talk and get it out. That's it.
And a lot of times, people make the mistake of they go in with an agenda, and it's a rightly so. They want to share God, you know. That's their zeal and yet that's not what people they don't want that right now. They will eventually get to that, I believe. God becomes a part of the picture, whether we like it or not.
Right.
But it's letting them get there on their terms, not trying to bring our agenda in and put them on our terms.
You know what's so interesting about this, and if you're feeling called to get involved in this, this isn't for wimps.
No, it isn't.
Because you're going to hear raw life.
Well, and you're going to see people at their worst. And, you know, it's their physical worst and their emotional worst. And a lot of times, you know, it's, I don't want you, you know, get away. Yeah, I'm from spiritual care. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of saying, okay, that something's upset,
okay.
You know?
Yeah. The other thing you're dealing with is the dynamics of family, which can be pretty interesting, contribute to a lot of that, don't you?
We see a lot of that. A lot of it is, especially, you know, in more intensive care units and stuff like that, where people are closer to death, family moves in for all different reasons.
You know, I want to say also, one of the key things you cover here are the do's and don'ts of being a chaplain. Now, I've interacted with chaplains with, like, the fire and the police on various occasions, and I think you've been involved in that.
I was with the fire department.
For those levels, and you know you get called right to the scene of a lot of things, and that's a whole nother level of service and care.
It is.
But in the hospital, there's some don'ts, right?
Yes.
Give me a couple.
One of the don'ts is don't get drawn in to their story. When they tell their story, sometimes it touches you.
Yeah. And
you end up, it gets to your feelings. And so you don't want to go in and get drawn into their story. And then you take over, you know,
you become
the room.
The manager of the problem.
Or you become the problem.
Yeah.
We've had some times when chaplains have gotten too close, and the patient has complained and said, you know, I was telling my story, and the chaplain started crying, and half an hour later, you know, I asked them to leave because they got sucked into it, you know. And
how do you not do that? If you're a true chaplain, you care, but where do you draw the line? How do you train somebody to draw that line?
You have to be at peace within yourself. That's you know, I know my story, and I know where my story starts and ends. And so if there's an identification. For instance, in May, I had heart surgery. Well, when I talk to a person in the CCU, in the cardiac unit, you know, I've been there in that place, but I can't let that story get in the way of what they want to tell me. And so while I can empathize, I've got to have that boundary line that says you can't go past that. And, you know,
which, by the way, is one of the hardest things to deal with when you're talking about health issues. Everybody wants to weigh in on their experience or their opinion.
Yeah.
Which kind of robs the person who's trying to be ministered to at the moment.
Exactly.
You supersede them with your story, you know.
And sometimes it's just an inopportune time. You're coming at a time when, you know, they're going through a medication issue, you know, and they're just not feeling their, and so if you take it personal, you know, the rejection, you take that personal, then they just, you know, they don't want to upset you, and yet, you know, they just don't feel like talking to you.
Do you deal with death and dying?
All the time. All the time, every day. Yesterday, 3 people died up there, and I was in the room with them. Sometimes it's more comforting the family. Sometimes it's dealing right before the patient dies. There have been times when I've been sitting alone because nobody's there to be with the patient, so I sit with the patient, and I just talk to them, you know, just trying to, I just, you know, we've got this time together, it's just you and I don't know whether they're conscious or unconscious or how conscious they are. And I just tell them God loves them, you know, and that when you get to see God, you'll see something you've never seen before in your life, and what a joy it's going to be, and just, you know, God will take care of you.
Are you allowed to, if somebody draws you all the way into a point of conversion, are you allowed to go there?
I have. It's there, you know, because a lot of times we ask, are you at peace with God? Well, how do I do that? Mm-hmm. And then I say, well, here's how I know how to do it. You know, there may be other options, but here's what I know. And then I take them through the scriptures. But I don't do that often because we're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, but things progress.
Yes. Yeah, if it's their suggestion, they're saying, how do I do that?
That's not the agenda, so to speak.
That isn't the agenda, but it's certainly...
Under the cover. I got it. Okay. Of course it is. Let me ask you this. It's coming up January 29th and 30th. It's 2 days. It's going to be there at the Smolin Center, which is right there in the parking lot of the Rogue Valley. What do you call yourselves now?
Rogue Regional Medical Center.
Rogue Regional Medical Center. Okay. How do they get signed up? What do they do?
They can there'll be some flyers going out. They go to the website and apply through their website. They can call my office, 789-3780, and go call the office, and I'll send them out the application forms.
Okay, 789-3780, of course, 541, 789-3780. Larry Blight, he's the top guy there. How many are you looking for?
We're looking to get 7 to 10.
Okay. And you put them on various schedules, all volunteer?
All volunteer. They commit to about 4 hours a week. And we try to say, well, if you can't do 4 straight hours, then do 2 2-hour shifts. You can do some in the evenings if you work during the day and you like to do it in the evenings. We have some evening shifts available. And we've got someone in the house from 7 in the morning to 7 in the night. And then all night long, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Wow. Available for, you know, we get called in just to do a prayer. Somebody dies and the family doesn't know what to do, and they'll call us in and just to do a prayer. But we do that. And people will go on call with us. I got chaplains that go on call and come in the middle of the night and just to do a prayer.
That's wonderful. At all your facilities?
Yes.
So you're here, Ashland and Grants Pass? Right?
Yes.
All right. So you obviously have a big team.
Yes, we do. And again, we've got some attorneys. We've got some former businessmen, you know, large corporation.
Isn't that wonderful?
Oh, it's great. These guys are sharp. These ladies that we have are sharp. And we've got some people that just, typical little old lady that just loves to go around and sit and talk and listen. And, you know, we've got people like that too. So it's from all walks of life, all different levels. We've got some chaplains who are from Buddhists, you know, and they minister to the Buddhist people. We have a number of different religions that come into the hospital that declare. We have one guy that concentrates on Native American spirituality, and
that's wonderful.
Yeah,
okay.
it's great.
Well, if you're interested, if you feel tugged by the Lord to do this, it's a volunteer position. You'll be highly trained and selectively trained as well. Mark down January 29th, 30th. Now, that's a month or 2 away, but nonetheless, it's coming up fast. You can call Larry at his office, 789-3780, 789-3780. and get signed up there. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
And thanks for your
Appreciate
work. Keep up what you do. Thank you for your service. All right, stay right there. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. Well, it's been quite a while since we've done an open line, and we want to do that for a little while today. And wherever you're watching or listening, you are welcome to be a part of the conversation. Here's the number now. It's a new number that comes right to the studio here and gives you a chance to go on the air. The number is 541-776-5770. All right, 541-776-5770. Now, again, that's a new number that comes directly into the studio. 776-5770. A couple of questions I have is, one is, last night was a huge night in Ferguson, Missouri, and of course it's impacted not only the nation of that town and that state, but the nation, and quite frankly it's a news story that's gone around the world. And that was the grand jury has decided that there will be no indictment against Officer Wilson, who shot the young man Michael Brown. And of course, the town didn't like that decision, or at least a lot of citizens in the town didn't like that decision. And last night's riots, in fact, it's still very tense there in Ferguson even today, and probably will be over the weekend. A lot of destruction yesterday. A lot of destruction. Felt that justice was not served. And so I guess the question I would have for you on that particular issue, do you think justice was served? I don't know if you had a chance to watch the prosecutor, the lead prosecutor, McCullough, who did a fairly extensive explanation of the process from the time that the incident occurred all the way through until the decision was released last night. It was fairly comprehensive, and I was somewhat fascinated by his explanation. I thought he did a great job in telling how the process worked, and I also thought he did a very good job in explaining how they went about it. And yet, in a grand jury, you have 12 jurors, and at least 9 have to vote the same direction. And we know that at least 9 voted to have no indictment against Officer Wilson. We don't know if it was unanimous or if it was just 9. It could have been 10, could have been 11. We don't know what that is. But the grand jury weighed evidence over the last several months. They took several days to make their deliberation, and then they came up with their decision that there would be no indictment. And of course, that created a tremendous unrest last night in Ferguson, Missouri, where a lot of rioting went on, and very destructive rioting. A lot of people lost their businesses last night. A lot of cars were burned, and a lot of damage was done. And so I don't know. There's more to it, because it obviously tells me that racial tension in this country is still very much alive. And no matter what side of the fence you're on, there seems to be great tension. I will say that I felt that the clergy in the area tried to handle this the best that they could. They came together. A variety of churches and church leaders and people of faith came together, asking for calm, opening their churches as a place, as a safe haven, and saying, you know, we need to continue to talk about these things and work them out, which is something we've heard for years. But nonetheless, the question I have is, do you think justice was served? You may want to comment on the Hagel resignation. I think that our vulnerability in the security-wise, our vulnerability in the United States has probably never been higher. It's just amazing to me that this administration, and now we have a lame duck Secretary of Defense. We don't know what our Middle East policy is. We don't know what our terrorist policy is. And it's clear that this administration, the current administration, is not a supporter of Israel. We got some real concerns there. Maybe you want to comment on that. So anyway, if there's anything else that we're not talking about, you're welcome to bring it, whether it's other issues. The phone number 541-776-5770. All right. Hi, Jacqueline. Thanks for waiting. What's your thoughts this morning?
Good morning, Perry. Thank you for your show, first of all. I just wanted to make a comment about the shooting situation. I'm experienced in law enforcement, and I think the aspect that people are not thinking about is that when a police officer leaves their home, it's with the expectation that they're going to come home safe. So that means putting their training into place every minute that they're on duty. They are trained extensively in how to react to a situation, in thinking about, what the end result could be. I mean, it's just instantaneous because of their training. What happened in this situation was very unfortunate. However, a robbery had just occurred. This young man went to reach for his gun. When that happens, that split decision has to be made, and that's where their training and their reaction comes in. And I just wholeheartedly believe that this officer had every right to defend himself, his partner, and unfortunately took a life. But that's just if you're going to do crime, if you're going to be out carrying a gun, and you're going to try to use that weapon, and that has to be. The people that do those sort of things need to understand that death could result from it. Yeah. I guess would be the way to put it.
No, I think you're bringing up a couple of great points here. I don't think we understand the life of a police officer.
Exactly.
We just don't understand that. For the most part, we look at them as somebody that's interrupting our lives. But the training, yes, the training they go through, but also the danger that they live with day in and day out. I remember when I was a reporter in Sacramento and for KCRA television, I was sent out on a story to cover a highway patrolman who just pulled over a person for just a normal traffic violation. As they walked up to the window, they were murdered. And I'm thinking, and I had to go to that story and be there through all of that, and I'm thinking, we just don't understand how dangerous that job is. But the other point of your comment is this, and I'll comment in the way of a question. Do you think that the whole way that this was handled, the lead prosecutor had a choice to send it right to trial or to send it to a grand jury? He decided to send it to a grand jury, number one. Number two, something that is somewhat unusual, but not totally, he let the grand jury weigh the evidence without his defense one way or the other. In other words, he did not get up and speak one way or the other as it relates to the evidence. He just let the grand jury do its job. What do you think of that?
I think in this situation, that was the correct decision, because I do not believe they would have been able to pick an unbiased jury at that point. I think that the grand jury had a greater chance of being unbiased. And again, I think that the evidence just spoke for itself. I don't think there was any need to really debate it one way or the other. It was black and white, basically, and clear. So, if I had been his defense attorney, that's exactly what I would have done, just in order to get a fairer decision.
Yeah, I find that interesting. Well, thank you, Jacqueline.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for your comments. Anyway, if you want to join us today, the phone number is 541-776-5770. And the question is, do you think justice was served last night? I think one thing I learned from last night was a little bit clearer picture of how a grand jury works. First of all, a grand jury is made up of average citizens, just like you and I. The grand jury was selected well in advance of the crime, which is interesting. They're on standby to take these kinds of things when they pop up. And but I thought that the prosecutor last night, now already some civil rights leaders feel that the prosecutor was biased, he did a poor job, he was inept, da-da-da-da. But if you listen to his statement, which was about 20 minutes long, he went through the entire process of what the jurors of the grand jury had been through in the last several months. And not only is it related to the evidence, but as what the law says, and most importantly, they had to go through mounds and mounds of testimony, most of which was bogus because the testimony did not match up with the evidence. And yet, they took every testimony seriously and gave it full vetting so that they could determine whether or not it fit with what the evidence was showing and the science was showing. And a lot of that did not occur. So it appears to me, unless I'm missing something, that what the prosecutor did last night, or what the prosecutor did from the very beginning, after the crime was committed and with the burglary and then the shooting of Michael Brown had happened by the officer, is that they gathered all the evidence and they secured it to go to the grand jury, which was the right thing to do, I feel. Maybe there's something I'm missing in that. By sending it to the grand jury, I think was the right way to approach this. It had every tendency to become political. Unfortunately, it didn't. All right, let me take one more call before we take a break. Hi, Midge, your thoughts on it today?
Yeah, I was wondering, wouldn't it be better to have black police in major black neighborhoods so they wouldn't feel that justice is racial? And don't you think that cop was an awful poor shot?
Say that again. Make your statement.
They make, because every time we go through this where a black is shot by a white officer, they go into riots and everything. So why don't they put black officers in black neighborhoods so they can't call it racial? And why did it take the cops so many shots to bring this kid down?
I think you have to look at, again, some of the evidence. Number one, they do have black officers there. Number two, when the crime was being committed, Wilson was at the scene of another problem. In fact, he was aiding a family with a child who needed medical help, and he stayed there until the ambulance arrived. And then he was dispatched to the scene of the robbery where other officers were involved. And so at that moment, you're in a situation, you can't pick and choose the officer. He's responding to the call. Now, if you're saying they should have an all-black police force, I don't know what you do with that. I don't know if they can.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting thoughts. All right, let me take a quick break. Thanks, Midge. Anyway, what do you think? It's an amazing thing. I would hope and pray that during this Thanksgiving week, this all can calm down. But a lot of big cities across the country now are put on alert for possible unrest, all because they didn't like the verdict of a grand jury. What would our system be if we didn't have the grand jury system? Whoa. Anyway, your thoughts? Give us a call, 541-776-5770. That's a special number to the studio, 541-776-5770. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Welcome back to Focus Today, and something we haven't done in quite a while, open line. Like to hear from you. And a couple of questions that are on the table, talking about the decision, the grand jury decision last night in Ferguson, Missouri, where the grand jury decided not to indict the officer in the Michael Brown shooting. And so maybe you have some thoughts and comments on that. Ferguson went through a horrible evening of incredible rioting and a lot of destruction because a lot of people felt justice was not served. So maybe you have some thoughts on that. The question, in addition to, do you think justice was served, do you think the whole grand jury idea is a good one? I was thinking as I watched the explanation from the chief prosecutor last night, giving his explanation of how they came and to their decision, but most importantly, how they worked their way up to the decision-making process was pretty fascinating. But I also came away with the conclusion, wow, where would we be if we didn't have a grand jury type system in this country? Pretty amazing. The other thing is, maybe you have some thoughts about Secretary of Defense Hagel's resignation. He's obviously being forced out. Some see him as weak and incapable. But now we have a lame duck Secretary of Defense, not knowing what our policy is on terrorism or the Middle East, Syria, and other places. Maybe he has some thoughts on that. And of course, let us not forget that the president, through what is being titled executive memo, but for all intents and purposes is an executive order, did a blanket amnesty order allowing millions of illegal aliens to enter the United States and get into some kind of a work system or green card system. We're still not even clear what it all says and does, and what should be the response to that. Maybe you have some thoughts on the immigration issue, which, by the way, is a big topic, so maybe you have some thoughts on that. The phone number, again, it's a special number right to the studios, 541-776-5770. 541-776-5770. So whether you're listening on the radio up and down the Dove radio network or on TV, watching, give us a buzz. 541-776-5770. All right, let me go with, hi, Elizabeth. What's your thoughts today?
Hi. Well, I had several ideas, and first of all, where was Martin Luther King when we really need him? That's my first thought.
Boy, that's true.
My second thought is we all need to really be in prayer about this officer for his safety, because he now has a big target on his back, and he was only doing his job. And my third thought is, I'm from an immigrant family. My dad had a thick German accent. A friend of his was put in a concentration camp during World War II for a completely innocent, he was totally innocent, but his whole family spent 3 years in Kansas. You don't ever see Germans rioting and burning down cities, and you don't see Japanese doing that, or Swedes or Greeks. And so I think the black people need to get some good leadership to stop destroying their own infrastructure. I mean, what good is that doing to ruin their own neighborhoods? They need good leadership, and we need to pray for them to get some good leadership and get out of the tribal mode.
You know, this is where the black church needs to really step up and take leadership and begin to work these things out. You are right. By doing the rioting and the destruction, they have ruined their town, ruined it. They may have driven some businesses out of business permanently. And yes, Officer Wilson certainly needs our prayers. I don't know what the system does. Could you possibly let him back on the force? I don't know. What about the grand jurors? Once you find out who the 12 jurors were,
the whole black population has proven the point that they're out of control, all of them. So they need to get some good leadership and deal with things peaceably.
Well, let's see what happens. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Okay.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. All right, let's go to, hi, Jack. Thanks for calling in. What's your thought today? Are you there, Jack?
So, Doug.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that was the right verdict in the Ferguson. Afraid that with all the different people from out of town, political people chiming in, that they wouldn't be able to come up with the truth. But I was pleasantly surprised. I think Hagel, I think that the Obama administration, there's a lot of deception, and I think that he just finally got, tired of it all. Are you still there?
Okay. I think I got all you said. Sorry about that. We just had a bad phone connection. All right, thank you. Again, if you want to make some comments, we've got a few moments left. The phone number is 541-776-5770. That's the number directly to the studio, 541-776-5770. Ron, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Perry, good talking to you again. Hey, I'm a retired police officer myself, but I don't. If we're talking about the grand jury and talking about the process, I know dealing with California, it's either the district attorney makes the decision whether they're going to charge it, so he has to look at the evidence himself to determine that, or he takes it to a grand jury, and the grand jury gets to hear it, and either the district attorney can either, supply just the information that they want so they can get an indictment. But in this case, it was even more fair because they showed him everything that was there. So the people that are complaining about what he was doing, he wasn't advocating one way or the other. But if he would have filed it, if he would have taken the case on and then took it before a preliminary hearing, but he would have to make the decision himself. This way, you had the jury making the decision.
Well, I thought it was very wise. First of all, we know it was highly politicized, and we know that because of that politicizing of the case, by sending it to the grand jury and for the chief prosecutor to not take a position is really justice at its best.
I think so. I think it's the best. I think it was very wise to do it that way.
Yeah.
And that way, it left it to the people to decide.
Yeah, it was citizen. Yeah, interesting. Thanks, Ron. Happy Thanksgiving.
Sure. Okay. God bless you guys.
Okay. Hi, Lori. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind today? Are you there, Lori?
You're real far away, but I thought call-ins this morning have been so thoughtful and sound. I wanted to make an add-on response to the comment that the black people are out of control, all of them, and I felt that needed to be modified, that I know there is such a large movement among many blacks that want sound law and are standing to oppose those that have been encouraged by NAACP, for example, to stand fast, hold their ground here in Ferguson. So anyway, just that response. Not all of them.
No, I
some of them.
No, I think you make a good point. In fact, if you look at the crowd, they're certainly not all there last night. I'm not trying to put words in Elizabeth's mouth, but I think what she was referring to, all of those who were outside rioting. But you are right. We're not. All doesn't mean the blanket all. And I appreciate you correcting that, because I think there are a lot who are trying their best to get this racial civil unrest behind us. And especially even the faith community, the faith leaders in that area were trying hard, and probably still are working hard, to bring this to a calm. But it's unfortunate that these riots break out, because the question I would ask, what if it went the other way? What if the grand jury did indict him? Would there still be any riotings in the street? You know?
Interesting thought. Thanks for hearing.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Okay. Well, it's interesting stuff, a lot to be praying about, and I think this underscores the need of all of us who are people of faith to realize that we're in some very interesting times in this country. And boy, do we need an outpouring of God's grace and spirit and revival. As you go into this Thanksgiving season, pray for that, would you? And in spite of all our problems, we still live in the greatest country on earth. Let's thank God for America. Let's thank God for the fact that we are free. We got a lot of problems, but we are still a free people. So let's pray for that, okay? And thank the Lord for it. All right, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.